कालकालाय विद्महे कालातीताय धीमहि तन्नो कालभैरव प्रचोदयात्। ओम हिंगुळे परमहिंगुळे अमृतरूपिणी तनुशक्तिमनशिवे श्री हिंगुळांबिकाय नमः। Namaskaram. Welcome to yet another video of our Ishtartha Guru Bhairava, where we will try to understand him one step closer as whatever we know him a minute before. Today's topic is about which has been as echoing from thousands of years when it comes to the mantra sadhana, tantra sadhana, any kind of tradition which has been followed with a mythology, or we can call it as a tradition with the connection of a self. This particular question is like not the one what we have it in as of current date, but in thousands of years this particular question has always been echoing in every most of the sadhaka's life. They happened once a Ṛṣi. This happened in the Agastya Ashrama. In the Agastya Ashrama, Ma Lopamudra, the wife of Agastya Muni, had a question to the great sage, asking him one particular question about why does some sadhakas with only few simple mantra which has been given as a Guru Diksha, and the grace of even Ma or even like Bhairava they will be able to attain it, but while others chant this mantra for millions of times repeatedly every sort and not, and still feel that there is no inner kind of a transformation happening in that life. Ma was very clear, asking why this is actually such kind of differences happening. Sage Agastya shared Ma actually one beautiful story. He took Ma into a different dimensions, telling what exactly is Sri Vidya, or what we call it as the Nath Kaula Sampradaya also, especially connected to one particular pūjā vidhana. We call it as especially Hadi Khadi, or tradition in a Sri Vidya. But here in Kaula also the particular reflection actually appears. He was able to tell one beautiful story connecting to Ma. Like before even the universe was able to stir, or even Shiva opened his eyes, like there was a moment, not as an action, as not as a word, just as a decision at that time. The Ṛṣi called this as Sankalpa, the seed through which the presides come before even the creation itself. He was able to give that particular information which was supposed to be decoded later. Every mantra you will ever chant, every yajña, even it is being lit, or every sadhana, every undertake begin with the same 3 Sanskrit syllables, and even all the priests whisper this particular mantra. He was able to direct that particular mantra to Ma, telling that Mama Sankalpam, this is our resolve towards the particular process, he was able to tell. But when it comes to today, I want to share why the Natha and the Kaula Tantrikas considered as a Sankalpa, as not as like what we call it as a mental trick, but as a weapon capable of blending the time itself, and why they placed a fiercely terrifying Swarupa of the Bhairava, the center of the power, called as the Bhairava Sthana Tattva, which is hidden inside the Sankalpa. But what actually the Sankalpa is. Let me just break this down for you to make this very little bit a step closer to understand. Sankalpa. Here, sang is not actually sam. It is in Sanskrit, samkalpam. Sam is somewhat like a complete, like unified. Kalpa is actually like, it may be like a evolution, or in other words, it may be a rule, a resolve, a ordinary, a order. All this comes into a picture when it comes to the Sankalpa. Let me just tell, Sankalpa doesn't means, as today's word or even the Lopamudrama was able to understand from Agastya, that Sankalpa is not a wish. The wish is scattered desire actually. Wish is actually somewhat like, I need this, I want this. But here there is a process even to actually ask the Devatas. This is called Sankalpa. Sankalpa is not a desire, but Sankalpa is a desire fuses like with will and to pointed like an arrow. This like, I'm asking this very precisely that I need this, and that is Sankalpa. Here, when it comes to the Khadi Hadi tradition, especially in the lineage of a Shri Vidya, because when we come to the Lopamudrama as well as Agastya Muni, we always talk about Shri Vidya. But why exactly this is getting over? See, let me just tell you, when it comes to the Bhairava sadhana, Shri Vidya is ultimate, as everyone knows. But here, Agastya Muni was able to tell some secret. Like Khadi mantra begins with a letter Ka, representing like Shiva as a Kameshwara, Bhairava, Kameshwara Bhairava as a Ka. Hadi mantra begins with something called Ha. He represents as Shakti, Shiva, that consciousness as a Swarupa. Khadi is associated with three things basically. It is about Kama, it is about Manu, it is about Ṛṣi Agastya. Here, Hadi is an attribute of Mata Lopamudra. This is what the secret he was able to share, the power of how to attain this particular Samayachara. What we call it as like in Khadi, the exactly that is external or internal, it is called the focus, Samayachara. This deep, what we call it as internal sublimitation, or somewhat like sometimes even it is called as an Kaulachara also. That is the reason I am trying to connect it with Nath Sampradaya. This Hadi, what we call it as Hadi Vidya, here Khadi and Hadi are actually connected to one particular hymn in Rig Veda, especially we call it as Panchadashi mantra. Here it is not about what we call it as Om Namah Shivaya mantra. Here it is most even connected to the union of Shiva. It is like actually to invoke the Ma Tripura Sundari. The secret was being disclosed by Agastya Muni. It is like Brahmavadini. This particular process is called Brahmavadini because this was disclosed in the connection of the Brahma. Exactly, especially when it comes to Grihastha Dharma, how exactly the household will be able to get the connection and how they will be able to, because when it comes to the Rishi Muni, they used to have certain kind of a lineage, they used to follow certain kind of a Guru Parampara information, the tradition which was being followed from one particular Guru to the next lineage, Shishya, who used to follow it. But here, when it comes to the Grihastha, they did not know how to actually invoke that particular space. Sitting here, not even going to the woods. Especially in a Grihastha Dharma, to understand the deepest Tantric mantras or to get even the divine blessings of Ma, Tripura Sundari, how exactly This was actually a doubt of Malopamudra. She was able to ask, and that's how actually this all started with. As I told you about what exactly the Sankalpa is about, it is very precise how exactly it is, like an arrow, pointed arrow, like a pointed arrow. What is my desire to be fused on? This is what actually is the modern, or we can call it as the deepest meaning of the Sankalpa is all about. But when it comes to the Upanishads, Sankalpa is what we call it as, is listed as one of Antarkarana, the fusion of mantras, what we call it as Antarkarana. Before even touching the mantras, it is about the manas, the mind. The power of the mind conveys how exactly to get a result. Later, actually, in the Tantra, it elevated into something called as Sankalpa. In the human, normally, this is what actually he was able to decode. In the, especially when it comes to the Grihastha Dharma, it is about the echo of something called Icchā Śakti. The divine itself, one of with the three primordial states, that particular essence is all about. It can be called as actually the power of consciousness at that moment. That Icchā Śakti is somewhat like a three stages: Icchā, Jnana, Kriya. Like we can call it as a will, we can call it as a knowledge, we can call it as an action. This is what actually Lopamudrama was able to understand when Rishi Agastya was able to tell this. And again, Rishi Agastya married to his own daughter. Maybe that is a different story, maybe a different storyline. We will be able to talk about that. But as it continued, Agastya was able to decode this information to the Maha with in much more connected note. This is where actually every pūjā, every sādhana, every diksha, or even any kind of an we call it a Sanatana Dharma tradition opens with a formally called something called Sankalpa. He was able to tell how exactly the Rishi Munis was able to invoke to the God, and how exactly they are arrow pointed to achieve their desire very, very clearly. And that Sankalpa mantra, you state it with, like, like even in modern days, whenever we do any kind of a, you have been initiated into the Diksha from one particular Guru Parampara, you have been given a particular Sankalpa procedure. Normally, the Sankalpa procedure has been told in a very simple level. Normally, there is a akshata which is being taken, little bit of a water is being taken. As in the Panchabhutas, we have spoken very clearly in this in the Life With and Without book. Sankalpa, what is the importance of it? Coming back, here, taking that akshata as well as little bit of water, taking the bhumi, or what we call it as the jala, the panchabhutas, taking the promises, telling that what is my name, what is the lineage I belong to, like Kula, what Kula actually we belong to, what is the Gotra what we belong to, where exactly we have born, and where exactly we have starting this particular sadhana, exactly where exactly this particular process is getting started. Even in the deepest connection, it is also said that actually what is the time, especially from Panchanga perspective, especially the time, the exact intention is being clearly specified without even the spoken resolve. See, this is what actually the Tantra text says, that ritual has no particular spine. The God do not answer to the verge of the heart, but the tradition of the most spiritual seeker is not that they are lacking the devotion, it is that they are never resolved. They hope, they pray, they almost never do any kind of what we call it is a prana pratisthapana of the sadhana, which is prana is somewhat like Sankalpa. This is what actually Lopamudrama was able to understand from the Rishi Agastya. But let me just take you one more story connected to this. Especially when long ago even the Rishi Markanda and even Manasvi was performing a greatest tapas to achieve, to get a son for their lineage to continue. They did a deepest sadhana, and when the Shiva appeared and gave them a choice that whether you want a foolish son who lives long life or a brilliant child who is fated with a die of within 16 years. So Markanda, Mrikandu or Markandeya, this is actually like Mrikanda Rishi actually, when he sat with Manasvi, they were able to discuss each other, asking that when Mahadeva was able to ask them about this question, they told like, no, we will go with the fated with a die of a 16. We choose brilliance. Due to that particular instant decision what they took, Mrikanda Rishi as well as Manasvima was able to name him as Markandeya. Till dated you know about it. What is the importance of Markandeya? And even what exactly when it comes to the Kaula Tantra is the deepest information. Maybe in some other story we will be able to tell. But here, the particular Markandeya, the boy grew up knowing the exact. He was able to know on the day one because his mother and father were able to tell him how many years he's going to live, what is the mission of his life, and how exactly he need to actually take his life to the betterment. He knew that what is the exact date of his own death. See, especially on this particular note, the children would actually disappear. They despair in such a way that actually they get indulged into the worldly things, and they actually think that actually I have got this body, let me use it to the fullest and make sure that actually I get into anything and everything so that actually I can get to know about this life and the life experience. But this boy did something different. Markandeya did something else. He had made a oath. He took, actually his father was able to teach him what exactly the power of Sankalpa is about. He saw that actually he would spend every minute, every day remaining of his breath is unbroken worship of doing to the Mahadeva, to the Shiva. He taught him about the mantra, and what we know as today Mahamrityunjaya mantra was actually being decoded by Markandeya Maharshi. The 16 years boy was able to chant the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. He was able to decode that mantra and he was able to chant continuously without even a break. He used to sit in front of the Shivalingam and he used to actually make a deepest connection with the Shiva, and he used to actually call Shiva telling that yes, I know that actually I'm going to die in so many days, but now this minute I am going to sit with you. Every day he continued. He resolved would not break, not even a doorstep of a death. He knew that actually he's going to die. Exactly on the 16th birthday, whatever he had it, he used to do the same thing, a routine thing. Not that actually I need to sit do a mechanical things. No, on the 16th birthday, he did the same action. He was sitting before the Shivalingam and he was actually doing a Mahamrityunjaya mantras Sankalpa, and he was doing a recitation of the Shivanama Smarana. And at that minute, 16th birthday, he know that actually he need to go away. Shiva had already told that actually he will be having 16 years of lifespan. On the day Yamaraja came, Yamaraja actually, he himself arrived. He did not send any kind of a ganas to, or what we call it as his, from his Yamapuri, he did not send any kind of an people to actually go and pick the, this is what actually which is written in Garuda Purana. But again, that is a different story. Let us stick to this. Here, when Yama himself actually, when he came to actually pick the boy, he put the Bhasha nose in in his on his head actually. At that minute, Markandeya did not run. He wrapped his arm and he holded Shivalingam, and he was continuously chanting the same Sankalpa mantra which he was being asked by his father. Yama's pasha fell. It did not even fell not just on that boy's neck, but even on the Shivalinga himself. It was able to fall on the Shivalinga himself. That is a moment where Shiva did not even merely bless that particular boy because he was being keep on repeatedly asking him to come for 16 years. No. When the pasha was being put by the Yama, immediately Shiva was able to erupt it from that particular lingam, and not as in a meditative aesthetic. Here, when it comes to the Shiva, I always tell Shiva is a most highest conscious level of meditative aesthetic. And here, whenever Shiva has actually took any kind of a Swarupa which has made him to act, that is Bhairava. Here, many people in the rituals also talk about Shiva himself, but let me just tell you, Shiva is a meditative ascetic consciousness state where apart from that he is in a blissed state where he never take any kind of an action. Because let's take an example. Even in Shiva Purana, even in Linga Purana, many stories we have heard. Whenever there was a situation, even when Sati Ma left her body, Shiva did not himself go to the Daksha Prajapati to actually kill him. He just took a handful of jeta, pulled it out and throwed it where actually Veerabhadra was able to come. Here, Shiva, that's the reason I always tell, Shiva himself never came anywhere. In the Swarupa of a Rudra he has come, or he has sent one of his reflection to take care of that situation. Here, as per the mythology, it is Shiva, but here it is Shiva Swarupa. It is Kāla Bhairava himself, the form of the Shiva, who was the master over that Kala, over the time, over the death. We always tell, right, when it comes to the Kala, he is actually before the time, he is after the time. He is the Adhipati of the Kala. And when Yama was able to put the Pasha, Bhairava, Kāla Bhairava was able to erupt it. And he took actually like a Trishula and he told to the Yama, he just touched that particular Pasha from the Trishula, declared, he told that actually this is the last. And he was able to give a bestow of Markandeya as a Chiranjeevi. See, this is what actually we call it as. When it comes to the what we call it as like basically when it comes to this particular Swarupa, people may actually debate, especially they write it to me, but let me just tell you, this is what I am trying to tell you. Shiva is the meditative ascetic conscious state. And again, let me just tell you, this context is trying to explain you why exactly he was able to take the control of the time. This is not Shiva himself, it was Bhairava. Markandeya was being given as a Chirayu. He was being given as a Chiranjeevi, deathless, forever that end. At that minute, he was able to know what are the things, especially Sankalpa, can change. See, notice what actually happened in this particular story is, it was not the mantra alone that saved that 16 years boy. The mantra are chanted for millions of times, and it may be like a millions who still fear of the death, but he did not fear for the death. He had a pointed arrow desire, clearing that what exactly I need to achieve it. It was an unbroken Sankalpa held to complete that. What even Yamaraja Pasha Nas was not able to do it. The Pasha could not even separate from the boy from his own resolve. Here there is a multiple stories which talk about how powerful the Yama's pasha was all about. Especially when you see from a Garuda Purana perspective, Yama's pasha is so powerful. Once he never, first of all, he never goes to pick any kind of a soul. Whenever there is a supreme soul, he himself used to go there. And whenever he used to go, and his pasha was so intense, powerful, that never come back. But here it took a surrenderness to that Sankalpa. Bhairava did not rewarded a wish to him. To the Markandeya, he did not actually fulfill his wish. Markandeya did not had any kind of wish. He had a Sankalpa that I need you in my life. He answered to resolve so totally, it had become indistinguishably from a devotion itself. See, Sankalpa is not asking God for something. This is what actually today every sadhaka goes through. It is actually refusing to let go until God move himself. Like Markandeya himself. Like, say the word, like, let me just tell you like this. Coming back to the context where, let us utter this word actually as Bhairava. Maybe you can also utter with me. Whenever we utter the word as Bhairava, the most of the people, they picture the terrifying Devata with a skull, with a runda, with a dog, with a cremation, with a faithful dog next to him, standard by thousands of ganas. This is what actually most of the people, when they take the word Bhairava, this is what actually reflects on their mind. Here the fear is not accidental. It is actually the point. This is what it is. The name itself is built from the two roots. Let me just tell you why Sankalpa and Bhairava's word is actually very, very connected. Because I'm trying to make you aware when it comes to the word, when you took the word in with me, you were able to visualize all these things. But let me just tell you, the name itself is built from the two roots, especially Bhai, the fear, Rava, the one who devours, one who removes that fear, is Bhairava. But here, when it comes to the Bhairava, we only remember about one of the things which is actually we have been recorded ourselves, because whenever we see something, we have not took a Sankalpa and actually seen him as what exactly he wants to disclose to us. It is not the wish he wants to fulfill to us. It is, we miss what exactly he need to actually make this particular life much more meaningful. Here, when it comes to the Bhairava, Bhairava is literally he who consumes the fear, not that one who causes it, the one who ends it by making you walk through that. He will make you clear that actually where exactly you are heading towards to. This is the first meaning of the, or first way of understanding of the Bhairava, because when we take in name, how exactly it reflects, but here it is in a different way. The second old, or what we call it as, especially in a Tantra texture, especially in Abhinava Gupta, he has very clearly decoded this in the Nath Sampradaya. Even in a Kashmir Shaivism, very beautifully been articulated. Bhairava is as Bharana and Ravana. I am very clear here. Bharana and Ravana, the one who dissolves the entire universe, is actually called Bharana. The one who dissolves it, that process is called Ravana. Simultaneously, they were able to talk about exactly about the breathing pattern. That is the reason in Trika, especially in the Nath Sampradaya, breathing is being given the topmost important. Bhairava is the point where the cremation and the destruction are not two different events, but as one continuous pulse. This is what actually is what we call it as Bharana and Ravana is all about. Even when it comes to the deepest connection of the Kashmiri Shaivism in the Trika tradition, Bhairava is not about the god at all. He's not been considered like it is not a mythological stories, or it is not a mythological events which we need to understand. It is a tattva. This is the reason we always tell it is Bhairava consciousness. It is the not the particular swarupa of the chronological information what is being recorded in this mind. In Kashmiri Shaivism, the mythological sense is not actually limited to. Bhairava is Parama Shiva himself. That is the reason when it comes to we have spoken about multiple swarupas of the Bhairava. Maybe in case if you have missed out, please see the different swarupas, Tantra swarupas of the Bhairava has already been spoken. Undivided consciousness itself is actually called Parama Shiva, and Parama Shiva consciousness Tattva is called Bhairava consciousness. That is the reason even in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, it is not especially it is about one particular person is talking to one particular member. No, it is the Shiva himself as a Bhairava, as Bhairava Vacha. He talks to Ma, Bhairavi, as what need to be understood. Parama Shiva decodes this information in a conscious level of a note. The ground before even the Shiva and the Shakti even appears as two different things. This is he was able to call as Bharga. Here Bharga means it's a pure radiant, the awareness, and that nature has three kinds of folds of information. When it comes to the second way of understanding the what we call it as Bharana and Ravana, this is where actually Paramashiva in Kashmiri Shaivism was able to understand into the three folds. And the nature of three folds are Prakasha. Prakasha is about the life of consciousness, the what we call it as a illusion. It is about the experience. This is the reason always in Bhairava Anugraha we talk about something called experience as the stage, not actually as the part of your sadhana. Prakasha, the light of consciousness, is all about your experience. The second is about the second threshold of the awareness is about Vimarśa. Vimarśa is somewhat like self-awareness. It is about the self-awareness of this pulse. That is what the Trika or a Kashmiri Shaivism or a Nath Sampradaya was able to tell. Self-awareness is what truly matters for an individual or a sadhaka to know, to experience the devatas or experience the divine consciousness level. The consciousness knowing itself that I am, that staring inside that particular light is called Vimarśa. And the third is actually the Sankalpa is a Vimarśa in that particular motion. The motion awareness does not just witnessing it. It is about turning towards something that decides, that turns Bhairava consciousness is not separate from inside what you have it. This is the reason why we always tell Bhairava is not actually a graduation or the where each particular sadhana mandala you complete and you feel, you think, you assume that actually I have achieved something. Now it is a time for something new. This is why in the Kaula-Trika lineage, sadhana or a sankalpa is not being taught or about the process of the fear of the Bhairava. Initially when we took about the word of a Bhairava, you were able to think about him whatever is being recorded in your mind. But it is something different as we understood, as we were able to understand him, that one, it was about Bhairava as a first in the two roots, one who consumes that fear, not that one who is cause of that. Second, what we were able to understand, Bharana, Ravana. This is what actually we need to understand. In the Kaula-Trika tradition, very clearly been articulated that Sankalpa is not been taught to fear about the Bhairava, but to become the one he represents. The consciousness is actually so totally that nothing, not even the death, not any kind of a maya, not any kind of a doubt, or even a survive contact with its unchanged state, because Sankalpa is so powerful. Bhairava, what we need to understand from a Trika perspective is the self with nothing left outside you is the state of consciousness of Bhairava. Now here it is where the I would like to take this particular topic to the different level. Let's where the actually story stop being distant about the mythology and becomes more connected to our lineage, to the Nath Sampradaya, to our own memories of the Sankalpa, can really do the changes of the sadhaka in their life. I believe you would be knowing about Guru Matsyendranath. We have already spoken about this in a very detailed in one of a video. Guru Matsyendranath, one of the greatest human guru which has been seen, or whatever we speak today about the Hatha Yoga. The Hatha Yogas, the main or we can call it as today, if the Hatha Yoga word if you have heard, it is only the blessing of Nath Sampradaya, Guru Matsyendranath. In the first human teaching form, he was able to teach this. And this particular teaching was he received directly from Shiva himself as Adinatha. We have already decoded this information that few of them actually call that actually due to the Dattatreya Swami. In the Swarup of Adinatha, he was able to understand. When it comes to the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, especially when Shiva and Ma was able to understand what the importance of 112 ways of experiencing the life, here in the Matsya, in the form of a fish, he was able to go and receive this information. Anyway, coming back, Matsyendranath being a first human guru who taught us about the Hatha Yoga. You have heard about majorly when it comes to Matsyendranath. Here he himself actually, there is a story which he traveled to something called Kadali Desha, Kadali Vana, and that Kadali Vana is actually was governed by a feminine dominance, and that particular Kuladevi of the Kadali Vana was actually Ma Kamakya. We have spoken about this information in one of a video. Okay, like in the Kadali Vana, the kingdom was ruled entirely by the actually like a woman's. It was completely tantra bounded. No male was able to enter into that particular rajya, but there the queen of the Kadali Vana, she was able to do a sadhana of, she was able to make sure that actually she need to get one of the best husband in her life. She was able to do a sadhana of the Hanuman. When Hanuman came, she was able to ask to the Hanuman that actually I want you as my husband. That is where actually Hanuman was able to decode that I being the will not be able to marry you, but I can give you a hack or a hint who exactly can actually change your life. Because here when it comes to he was able to tell about the Matsyendranath. That story is actually very beautiful, connected information. And here when Matsyendranath was able to go into the Kadali Desha, that particular Rajya, he was actually the queen was able to take Matsyendranath, and he became a king of that place. She gave a comfort, she gave all the wealth, but in this particular transition, when he became a king, he actually forgot everything about the Nath Sampradaya. He also forgot what exactly he got the information from, even from the Adinatha himself. Slowly, the greatest yogi of that particular age lost all the memories of who he was. The teacher of the teachers became trapped by the pleasure. Back in the ordinary world, or what we call it as, you would be knowing about this. He had a greatest shishya, where Gorakhnath. Gorakhnath actually was so connected discipline to the Matsyendranath. He sensed that this is through the yogic vision. He was able to understand this particular yogic vision. Actually, there is a storyline connected to it. Maybe in a different story we will be able to talk. Actually, Gorakhnath came all the down line to the search of his guru. He was able to come to the Karnataka. There is particular kshetra where we call it as Chinchinigiri. In that Chinchinigiri, he was able to get the darshan of the Bhairava, and he was able to get to know where exactly his guru Matsyendranath is there now, and what he need to do next. Maybe this particular Nath Sampradaya of the south we will talk about in the different video, but let me come back. In the yogic vision, or in the decoding of the Bhairava himself, he was able to know where exactly his guru is. And the Gorakhnath did not actually weep. He did not actually abandon his guru because of his karma, whatever he did it. But intent of this, he actually took a Sankalpa that he would walk into that Kadali Desha, Kadali Vana, that the kingdom of the illusion, where Ma Kamakya herself is taking care of in entire Tantra. She is actually been governing that place, and whoever goes there, any male cannot enter into it. But he took a Sankalpa. He took a Sankalpa that I will pull his guru back out from there, whatever it cost, even if my life goes away with it. He entered the Kadali Desha. He is distinguished as he took that actually as a dancer. He began actually singing like a ordinary songs. But here he did one great thing. He coded a verse of a yogic wisdom which his guru had taught him, telling that what is the importance of it. The very teaching of the, what you call it as a Matsyendranath himself, had once given a Gorakhnath, line by line he was able to tell this. The song crack was not like the song, it was able to, Matsyendranath was able to hear his own forgotten teaching sung back to him, remembering who he was actually remembered, that was being explained by the discipline. The Natha walked out of the Kadali Desha with his Sishya. That was not a miracle. It was able to, with the help of that Sankalpa, he was able to get the Guru back to his lineage. This story is why the Nath Sampradaya does not treat sadhana as actually something called private or individual affair. Sankalpa held by a Guru or a disciple can reach into a something else. It can actually remove us or remove any of the sadhaka out of Maya, pull them out of it. It is all why the Natha reveres the Guru discipline as almost as most important, because Gorakhnath Sankalpa did not just save the man as his Guru, it preserved the entire unbroken lineage till dated. If his teaching is there, continue till dated, it is only because of Guru Gorakhnath took a Sankalpa. That is the importance of the Sankalpa which Guru himself, Guru Gorakhnath, was able to actually teach to us. A true Sankalpa does not only change you, it reaches through the Maya to change someone else to what you are truly are all about. So how does this actually work in practical? You may ask this as one of a question. In today's state, how exactly this is going to help us? Let me just tell you, inside the Natha Kaula tradition, in the Natha trace, in the lineage of the Adinatha, same, the information about Matsyendranath and the Gorakhnath, we have something called 84 Siddhas. Okay, their path is about building a Kaya Siddha. Here, Kaya Sadhana or Kaya Siddha is actually a different level of connection information when sadhana has been done. It is a conviction that the body itself is not the, what we call it as, reunification of it. It is said that this body is a vehicle. That is the reason Hatha Yoga is very, very, very important when it comes to the Nath Sampradaya. If you have been taught Hatha Yoga, try to understand, you somehow been connected to the Nath Sampradaya. Pranayama, even if you are doing the pranayama, try to connect. If your lineage has been connected to the pranayama, think that there is some essence of Natha Sampradaya in it. Someone talking about the Kundalini awakening, let me just tell you, even this particular connection is also connected to the Natha Sampradaya. Nada Yoga, what we call it as, from the sound we activate or raise our energies to connect to the Devatas. Even if you have heard about this, try to understand there is a glimpse of the Natha Sampradaya. Even if you have heard about something called Khechari Mudra, try to understand these things are the root which is directly connecting to the Shiva and Shakti decoded information from the Adinatha directly to the Matsyendranath, to the Natha Sampradaya. None of these are performed as a mechanical exercise. In the Natha Sampradaya, this is being done as very, very conscious. Because when you take a charanas, Vij Pratama Dvitiya, this is what actually is being taught. First, it is actually made to sit, connect, experience. Once you do it, then only the different stages of the sadhana is going to be, it is going to open. Every single one is opened with the Sankalpa. Even if it is a Hatha Yoga, it is a Pranayama, it is a Kundalini awakening, Nada, or even it is a Mudra, Khechari Mudra, whatever you are going to do, it is actually connected to that. See, in Kaula, it is a thread woven into this through the centers like, or we can call it as a Mahakshetra, even like a Kamakya, like what we call it as borders of Kaula-Trika currently being practiced. Something critical, or what we call it as a non-dual lived, or not just as believed, it is experienced. Even till dated, you get experienced when you go to these kshetras, Mahakshetras. Why? Because it is all about experiencing the life, and that takes a more prominence or more active only when you do a Sankalpa. In a Kaula Sadhaka does not practice the Sankalpa to escape through the world into something called as pure. It is untouched spiritual realm, they will be able to touch it. Here he practices it to recognize what is the essence of that Adinatha was able to give to the Matsyendranath. What we call it as Bhairava and Bhairavi, or Shakti and Shiva, are already infused in your own body, or what we call it as a breath. Why it is important? Trika. Why exactly the desire, the kama is important? The action and that resolve, or what we call it, the resolve of the Sankalpa is exactly the instrument, what we call it as an instrument that collapses, that the false gap between me and him, me and ma. The divine up there is something different and divine inside me is something different. No, this is the reason in the Bhairava Anugraha or in the Natha Sampradaya perspective, they tell divine is not something outside, divine is actually within you. Without the divine touch, you will not be able to experience that particular divine outside you. This is why before any kind of a serious Natha sadhana, whether it is a japa or even any kind of a most highest level, when you leave the grahastha, when you go into the in a brahmacharya, especially duni is being practiced. the Kundalini practice is being done. Even in a Brahmacharya this is being done. Or even a Bhairava and Bhairavi Upasana, the sadhaka, the upasaka, the practitioner seeks something very, very loud. What he need to understand is Sankalpa is everything. The name, the place, the time, the deity, and the precise results what is sought out of that is very, very clearly been asked. It may be actually sounds very simple when it comes to actually take a Sankalpa. It may sound like very simple, but it is not. The half-hearted Sankalpa, like I can tell that it is considered as worse not by taking at all. Even if you do a sadhana without Sankalpa for next 10,000 years, even for next 10,000 janmas, nothing is going to change. Even keep on rolling the malas for telling that actually I have done my charanas, nothing is changed. Nothing will even change it, because half-hearted Sankalpa is never going to work. It teaches the mind that resolve cannot be broken. It teaches that the mind, once you take a Sankalpa, it cannot be broken because of your comfort level, because of your thought, limitation thought that today I will skip it, tomorrow I will try to do. Today I can't do because of the limitations of my bodily discomfort. Tomorrow I will do it. Unbroken Sankalpa, keep this in mind. It held the way that actually Markandeya held that particular Shivalingam. Even Gorakhnath held his oath to save his own Guru. And what the tradition called as Bhairava Shakti or Bhairavi Shakti awaken as well. The same force is actually in the human decision form is actually technically called Sankalpa. Here what I want you to take from this particular information is Markandeya did not defeat the death because he was sinless. Gorakhnath did not cross into that particular kingdom of illusion because he did not fear. They own because their Sankalpa outlasted their obstacles. This is the reason I tell Sankalpa is actually the prana of your sadhana. Bhairava, whether you meet him, as I told, FRC, and even whenever you go to the Kashi, this is what actually most of the people know him. Let me just tell, he is a Parama Shiva, the purest, undivided consciousness in the Trika text also. It is not about asking to be fearless. He is shown you that the fear dissolves that instant you resolve becoming totally connected to it and you commit to it. So before you begin your next sadhana, next mantra, next charana, whether it is a mantra, a fast, or what do we call it as a meditation, a life decision, don't just hope for it. Sit down. Sit down in the state where you connect, state it, name it, hold the way that you have hold to that particular. Markandeya was able to hold that lingam. The Yama Pasha already falled, but still he was able to escape it. That is Sankalpa. That is the door of what the sadhaka, the Natha was able to teach. Nath Sampradaya was able to teach. The Kaula Sampradaya was able to teach. Before holding open for thousands of years, this is what actually been taught to us very clearly. What is important in this particular life? How exactly this can be understood when it comes to the importance of the Sankalpa. See, let me just tell you, he did not raise the voice. He did not argue. He did not display that his infinity power. They were able to show, connect with one simple information. They made simple thought, and the thought was untouched from any kind of circumstances in the life. That was Sankalpa. The silent, the absolute, the unshakable resolve is what Sankalpa is all about. Maybe by this note, we'll talk about the next Swarupa of our Ishtartha Guru Bhairava in the next video. ॐ कालकालाय विद्महे कालातीताय धीमहि तन्नो कालभैरव प्रचोदयात्। ॐ हिङ्गुळे परमहिङ्गुळे अमृतरूपिणि तनुशक्तिमनशिवे श्रीहिङ्गुळाम्बिकाय नमः। नमस्कारम्।